Hey guys, welcome to Screen Fever. My name is Adam Barnard and I'm joined today by Andrew Martin Hogsten. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. It's a long time coming.
This is actually the first time Andrew and I have spoken, and we haven't even met in person, but we actually met through the fan community of Angels and Airwaves, where we were both very active in this kind of new era that centers around Poet Anderson, the Dreamwalker, the short film and the album release, which is really what we're going to dig into today and start to examine whether the film and the whole multimedia project has really made the impact that Tom set out to make. So good to finally do something together and collaborate.
Dude, I'm like stoked because we've talked about doing this for at least a month and a half, maybe
Really?
two.
Has it been?
Yeah. I kept pushing it back.
It happens. Yeah, it's always a challenge with recording when you're not in a house together, in a room together. We also found out we share interest in like Stargate. Both of us have storied past with Stargate fandom and Angels and Airwaves and screenwriting. So this is absolutely meant to happen. This is meant to be a friendship, and I'm really excited to get into the nitty gritty of Poet Anderson, the Dreamwalker, the short film, and also Andrew to get your take as a screenwriter on the material.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into it, man.
Get on.
I'm always with you.
Is there a place in your dreams for me?
Poet Anderson, The Dreamwalker is an animated short film directed by Tom DeLonge and Edgar and Sergio Martins, who are brothers who work in animation. It is a companion piece to the full-length album The Dreamwalker, which was released about the same time in 2014. It is a concept that spans not just music or film, but it really centers on a character who has unlocked the dream world and is able to experience lucid dreams that are starting to bridge the gap between dreams and reality. And that's something that the film attempts to portray in a narrative sense, showing the titular character of Poet Anderson vacillating ever more ambiguously between a sleep center in Seattle and a dreamscape called Genesis. So I just want to throw it to you, Andrew. What did you think of initial impressions of Poet Anderson, The Dreamwalker?
So for me, with Poet Anderson, The Dreamwalker, I loved it. I didn't know what I was going to be watching when it started. I had rough concept of the art that had been shared, but it was a really cool fusion of a lot of ideas that Tom DeLonge had brought to the table over the course of several years. In terms of design, you have your main character and our Dreamwalker with the umbrella and the suit, the baller hat,
Right. Yeah.
and really seeing that he took it from, I don't even really know, like a silhouette of a character into a fully developed character that was relatable to a youthful audience. I mean, because this was definitely marketed towards the young adult.
Oh, and especially
teens.
the novels. Like the novels and the comic are definitely young adult centric. But the film, I think, has a air of universal appeal. To your point, like the character very much could have died on a slate of concept art, and Tom DeLonge, who is very Instagram trigger happy, was sharing, oh my god, so much stuff over the years, and I think a lot of fans were wondering, will this materialize or coalesce, or is this just cool illustration? And with the short film, barring some narrative difficulties, it really worked. Like, you get the tone of this world. Like, tone is everything with film, especially if it's a short film. So if you can achieve a tone and a feel and a texture, you've probably succeeded.
Yes. Like, I'd say the shortfalls of the film itself is the fact it's only, what, 15 minutes?
Yeah,
So it's definitely a short. It's not like a TV episode that would be, what, 20 to 22 minutes?
at
And it's,
least, yeah.
and it's definitely not a feature. So they sacrificed some story development for style and a little bit more flash. The animation is on point.
It's fantastic, yeah.
I mean, when I'm looking at it, it is reminiscent of like what Titan AE, because it definitely has the 2D animation, but then there are 3D elements mixed in, and really love the way that all pulled together.
Yeah, it's familiar yet fresh. I mean, you have some comparisons to Blade Runner or Star Wars or Akira or a lot of different styles of animation, especially Asian or Japanese animation. But like, I get really frustrated when people call it derivative because like it breaks new ground in terms of its themes, I think, and how that's represented within the dream world. I mean, you're more versed in animation than I am, but like, it's somewhere where you want to visit, you want to be there more. And like, I found myself wanting this story in animation to just be longer and better fleshed out in as a feature film. Like, I'm still depressed that they haven't done a feature because it's such a good format for this kind of story.
I think that a feature would be awesome. I'd even argue that they could take elements of this and flesh it out into a 70-minute movie.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to why that hadn't happened, especially with the material that's there. I mean, they had the book, they had the comics, and a lot of it's there. The content, the story, it's there, but we only got a 15-minute, here's a glimpse.
It's like a teaser. I mean, people who I've showed it to who are outside the periphery of the DeLongean fan groups are kind of, or outside of the AVA community, really see it as like, okay, cool, what's next? Like, it feels like a bit of an extended trailer. And truthfully, it does serve as an extended trailer because the idea is that you watch this and it's palatable and accessible, and then you're piqued by your interest is piqued by the tone, and then you go buy the book, or you go get the comic series, or you go listen to the Dreamwalker, or even the Of Nightmares EP. It's just like we haven't yet, in my opinion, reached the home run for Poet. Like, we haven't reached what the piece of art that Poet will be known for. As great as the Dreamwalker was, and as great as the short film was, like, I feel like we need that full-length animation, feature-length animation movie, or we need a live-action feature to fully realize this world that Tom has created.
Well, I think part of that, too, is the fact that really all in one go, we got an album, which is more or less a soundtrack, because they do have songs like Tunnels that play into it. We got a short film, we got a series of comic books that they put together as a graphic novel, and we got a novel, and now there's been a sequel to the novel. All within the span of what, 2 or 3 years. Most of it all came out in the first year back in 2014.
December 2014.
And the multimedia aspect, where they're trying to like hit all facets at once, I get it. But at the same side, it also robs them of the ability for their target audience to imagine it.
Interesting.
Because they've painted what this world looks like. Here's what the character looks like. Here is what Genesis looks like. And everyone's like, oh, well, it can be derivative. Oh, it reminds me of Blade Runner or Star Wars or what have you. And I get that, because when you're looking at it, you're seeing the surface, and you couldn't build the world in your head first. Because even when you're reading the book, you're already reading it in the same sense of like, you go see Jurassic Park. You saw the movie, but the book was radically different. If you'd read the book first, watch the movie, you'd really enjoy the movie, but you kind of favor these things in the book. If you saw the movie first, exact opposite scenario. You're kind of going in and you're like, whoa, this is so radically different and what the hell happened?
Yeah, and I will say the book covered some new imagery. I mean, I think one of the big failures, and not, it doesn't even really touch on the creative merit, it touches on the marketing, is that it wasn't really established why each of the pieces exist. Like, for example, the book has many scenes that are almost copied and pasted into the short film. And then those 2-minute animations that Tom released, like as teasers for Of Nightmares, are also of scenes from the book, but it doesn't at all connect to the short film. And there's also some stuff that kind of the comics covers all of it. And it was one thing where it's like he's trying to develop what's essentially amounting to a mini cinematic universe, yet, as you said, it is not parceled out to the viewer in a way that stokes their imagination and ongoing involvement in Poet Anderson. But the good news is that's just about the presentation, not about the product itself.
Yeah, because the product itself is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It really is fun. And I would love to see it grow and become more. Like we've already said, we want to see the feature film because it is a great world. Arguably his best product, I would say, even more so than the alien UFO stuff, at least in this.
I mean, like, well, when you say that, do you mean Poet as a whole, or do you mean this short film in particular?
I'd say Poet as a whole.
Okay. You're a Dreamwalker guy, right? Let's talk about the music. You very much, that was your favorite album or second favorite of Angels?
Not my favorite.
Okay.
Favorite still, We Don't Need to Whisper.
Certainly.
I'm there for the classics. Or if we really want to get technical, my favorite's Boxcar Racer. But in regards to Dreamwalker as an album, though, I loved it. It was a different sound. It was completely reinvented. It's not really a story.
No, it's not a concept album. Like, I think people thought it was going to be a concept album, but it ended up being a very solid piece of art, but tapping into a lot of different imagery and genres that don't relate necessarily to Poet, and very few mentions of anything in the Poet universe. Honestly, there's like one in the Wolfpack, and that's it. Like,
right. It wasn't American Idiot,
no,
Green Day, or My Chemical Romance, Black Parade. Though I think that could have really helped the product if it was something like that.
I mean, well, here's the thing: like, Tom DeLonge is very much a free-spirited artist, is the best way to put it, I think. He wanted to do something different musically, and the reason it isn't a concept album, I think, is because he had to find out how to co-write music effectively with Ilan Rubin, who started out as the drummer, but he became a multi-instrumentalist and a songwriter and a producer on the new music. And like, Ilan comes very much from a school where it's like when you're focused on the music, you're not thinking about making it a concept or tying it into a short film or novel. Like, you are focused on making the best song possible and nothing else. Like, that is your mission statement. That is your guide through the process. So Tom had to kind of, I think, decide, am I going to do a concept album like and disappear into my own head? Which, I mean, it worked for We Don't Need a Whisper, so I'm not saying it would have been a bad idea, but in this case, he chose to partner with Ilan Rubin and say, how can I evolve myself just so focused on the songwriting and the music and partnering, having a 50-50 partnership with someone like he would have with Mark in the songwriting back in the early Blink days.
I can see that. And it definitely was a huge shift in terms of like a whole album, because I think the first time we had Rubin was on the EP Stomping on the Phantom Brake Pedal?
Stomping the Phantom Brake Pedal, which was awesome. The score evolved is some of my favorite stuff by AVA.
It's epic. It's cinematic. And I was glad to see the music move more into that tone. They definitely went back into like the synths, and you still have your guitars, but not in the same way as the earlier stuff, where it is an evolution, which was great because it's not a rehash of the same thing they did 10 years ago, which I'm sure a lot of people would have preferred.
But an evolution, I'm split on the evolution. Here's why, because this is really interesting. When I see the Poet short film, and when I hear the concept, and when I just, even if I watch the short film with the sound off, right, or read the novel, I would be imagining music from like the Love era. You know what I'm saying? Like hallucinations or anxiety feel like the songs feel like something, not the emotions or not the medical situations, but the song. So, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Even like Moon is My Witness and some of these other very atmospheric songs, I could just see zoning out on the poet imagery and listening to that song and having it coalesce. So when you had this very dirty, grounded, not polished tone to the music, it took me some getting used to, because I almost wish Tom did another classic album to score Poet, because like one of my issues with the film is like when Paralyzed plays like halfway through, it just doesn't fit very well. Like it's this garage rock on top of this massive motorcycle chase through Genesis, and like I guess it works, but like I would have rather like an instrumental from the Love or I Empire era be played over that.
Yeah, like Moon is My Witness, or Behold a Pale Horse.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I mean, even just the melodic hooks of the earlier stuff, if you repurpose that for the score, like they repurposed the songs from the Love album for the Love movie, it might have felt more, I mean, what's the word? Space rock? Like, that's the thing. It's like, if your genre is space rock and you make a movie that takes place in a very dreamy, space-like dream world, wouldn't you want to stick with dream rock and not go back to, like, boxcar, dirty garage rock? However, it did work. It worked for me, even though it wasn't what I expected.
It makes sense. And I'm hoping that there's another shift in the sound for Strange Times. Like you mentioned, like garage rock. I'm really hoping that we get more of a stripped down back to the acoustics. Even like Anomaly, the last track on Dreamwalker. I'm hoping that we see more of that in the other properties.
So on the Dreamwalker, what would you say your highlight was? Like your 2 or 3 of your favorite songs from the Dreamwalker, even separate from the short film.
Ooh. That
put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's on the spot.
I can go first if you want. Oh, Anomaly? Okay.
Yeah. And I'm just going to, like, mic drop Anomaly. I love the song. I think that it was the right length. I don't know, it just felt right.
Did it give you those romantic feels? Like, I've got so sentimental for past relationships when I heard that song first. It was like, strangely enough, a real gut punch, and just like I was transported back to how I felt as like a teenager. I mean, you know what I'm talking about?
I do. For me, it made me think of a lot of summers I had when I was growing up and being up in like New England and just being a kid.
Yeah.
Having a crush on a girl, and not even a relationship, just the crush.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
yeah, because it felt like that.
It's such a novelty, that feeling, that first feeling of like having a crush, I think. And like the songwriting is so subtle. Like in the first verse, it says, I never wanted to say I like you. And then the second verse, second verse, it says, I never wanted to tell you how much I loved you. And that was like, it's so subtle and like basic, but like paired with the music and DeLonge's like vocal style, which is so bare and stripped down and like vulnerable. You know, usually Tom is like a very nasally voice with a lot of attack. This felt so like open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even like these words, they're no Hemingway. They don't have any value.
Yeah, I love it. It's simple. It's beauty in the simplicity. And like, you're a writer, you know, like you can draft the most elegant prose, and if it doesn't have that kernel of truth, it's not going to make an impact. Mm-hmm. You know, it needs to have that heart. And sometimes the heart can be achieved in a single line of dialogue or a single line in the verse of Anomaly. Well, so any other highlights from the album that like...
lyrically, the Wolfpack.
Wolfpack is fantastic. I love it.
What do you like about it?
The songwriting, like the root notes, the chord progression he writes is just perfect for the kind of vocal lines he's putting in there. The imagery was very good. I mean, he mentions a poet is sleeping. It's very like, it's like almost like slam poetry. It keeps going and going and going. And it's like very staccato, you know, it's like line and line. It feels like he's like mix between talking, singing, rapping, and thinking out loud to himself. And then the chorus goes full classic Angels and Airwaves and just blows the roof off the house.
And you get like great lines like, "It's all right, a bit scathed, a bit lost. I've been played. I ain't that clever."
I love it. And you see, it's like it has a inherent rhythm. Even you sang it out loud. You weren't singing it, but it has that rhythm, that flow. And like, yeah, I know this. I'm gonna get shit for saying this, but like, Tom is a poet in and of his own right. I'm not talking about like poet like a dreamer. Like, I'm talking about a lyrical poet. Like, the man simply does not get enough credit. What?
We could say he's a dreamer.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that too. But yeah, he's. I just love what he does with words, and he has. And that's something that's spanned from Blink to Boxcar to Angels to his solo work. Like, I think like what I found in a lot of DeLonge fans, and what I found maybe with you, and with people that I get along with a similar interest, is like it speaks to something personal within us that we all share. It doesn't have to have much similarity, but there's some kind of like shared emotion or feel that Tom has felt. And like when his music has that resonance with people across the world, so that when two people who are, diehard Tom DeLonge fans meet, they're almost guaranteed to hit it off in some way, because they some people might listen to Blink and be like, yeah, it's stupid, generic pop punk shit. But like, some people listen to Blink, and especially the later Blink, like the Untitled or Neighborhoods, they're like, yeah, there's something real in this. Like, there's something of me in this music. And like, that's what I think has made the fan community so tightly bonded over so many years.
And what tears them apart.
It's like family, right? Your proximity is your strength, and also your weakness.
Yep.
What about... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, any tracks that you don't like on the album?
Yes and no. Actually, screw this. No, I like all of them in their distinct right. What I don't like is the mixes on some of them. So when you're listening to songs like, say, Tunnels, and you have this intimate, real, like one of the best verses Tom has ever written lyrically, and it sounds like it's buried under 5 feet of mud because, I don't know, style. Like, it's like, it's, it's something where it's like, I'm watching someone throw mud on their own creation and call it a Warhol. Like, no, it doesn't work. Like, when, sure, having a muddy track worked. And for example, in Paralyzed, like, the song is very chaotic, so it needs that kind of angst and cacophony during some parts. But Tunnels is so intimate and open, and like, if you look at Anomaly, the voice comes through clear, it's soft, it has power. And with Tunnels, lyrically, it does have power, and it just feels like it's 6 feet deep.
Okay.
I mean, what about you?
Talk about Tunnels. Paralyzed was my least favorite.
Really? Okay.
Really?
Because of the mix or because of the composition?
Both.
Okay.
Like, it's the one song on the album that to me just kind of felt like I was trying to make something for the radio that was different, but didn't quite work.
So the jury is still out. Turn up the stereo. Yeah, Bullets in the Wind was a really good one on that topic. I didn't believe what I was listening to the first time I heard it, because it was just so weird. Like, I mean, in retrospect, it's not that weird, but like, it is so off-brand for like what Angels would usually do, and and that was a credit to Alon Rubin. Like, I mean, you look at Mercenaries and Tremors and Bullets in the Wind, like, these are all songs that could have sounded like they were on Love, and the reason why they don't is because Tom knew his strengths as well as his weaknesses, and he knew that his songwriting needed fresh blood. And like, I would much rather, forget what I said earlier about putting those songs in the film. Just as a musical artist, I would much rather have something that's polarizing and different than to have Love Part 3.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with people before where it's like, well, it just sounds so different from Love. And I was like, well, you know what? Love Part 1 and 2 are so far and removed from I Empire, and even further removed from We Don't Need to Whisper. It has to change. If it stays the same, then you end up with Green Day's Uno, Dos, Tres.
Yeah, no, yes, you do. Yeah. Which is, again, like, I know you like California, the Blink album, but like, there is something to be said about it sounding like a sequel to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket and not like a sequel that builds on much else. You know, it's just a very good album. We're seeing this in like movies. Like, you know, part of the problem with Star Wars is like people are like, okay, when's there going to be something different? Like, when are we not going to have the Millennium Falcon in a movie? When are we not going to have Han Solo or Obi-Wan? You know, when are we going to get something that like George Lucas would bring us, which is just so different?
Well, and like on that front, it's kind of like with a lot of like concerts tying like music to like something like Star Wars. A lot of the fan bases like shut up and play the hits, you know, but they forget they can just go watch the old one over and over again. You know, when they see something different, they're like, whoa, this isn't what I was expecting. Why are we getting new material? I can't sing along to this. I can't quote this.
Yeah.
And they forget that eventually they will.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think like I appreciate Tom, and he's influenced me a lot because he says like you can't listen to that. Like if you run your art project as a democracy, or you run it as like crowd fund your own direction, like that's just kind of like you're gonna lose your voice because you're crowdsourcing everybody else's voice for you. And like that's it's just something where it's like you have to stay fresh, you have to evolve. And I mean, if you look at the other EPs, like I don't know, maybe not everyone agrees with me, but like if you take the Dreamwalker and Of Nightmares and Chasing Shadows and even say throw in the Score Evolved, they're all so different. They're really not that similar. Like I mean, if you take Love 1 and 2, yes, they're very similar. And then if you take the next 4 releases, they couldn't be more different.
That's true, especially Chasing Shadows, because that gets more into like this faster paced, like, I don't know, just wants to make you run and makes you want to fight and shoot down UFOs.
Yeah, and like I don't know if you felt this, but Chasing Shadows was kind of like Anomaly to me. Like it's has the sonics of a space rock song, but it has the lyrics of someone falling in love or being in love, and kind of like yelling out to, you know, like reaching out to someone they care about in a very deep way, and like that chorus is tremendous.
Well, and I think that ties into what that music was for. I mean, Chasing Shadows, they wanted people to identify with, you know, conspiracy and being that one person going against the grain.
Yeah.
So I really feel like it hit that. And that's what I'm happy about. And that's why, like, even talking about Strange Times, which oddly we've had a book, but really the least amount of content surrounding it.
Yeah, it has been very scarce.
I'm hoping that one has its own identity.
What did you think of Chasing Shadows EP? Were there any highlights on there for you?
Oof. I have to pull up the track list. And
The problem with Chasing Shadows is I like all of them. Like, in their own way, like, Overload. I nearly said Obvious. Overload is like a progressive punk rock song. Artillery is like the coolest damn thing I ever heard in 2016. Like, I love that song. It's just, it takes what would be a generic rock song and thematically enhances it by what Tom's singing about. And Voyager is just a, you know, punch through the drywall type feeling. Like you want to jump in a motorcycle and drive like 100 miles an hour down the road. And then Chasing Shadows is a very intimate portrait, a very long song, and something that feels emotionally earnest. So like, I mean, that is, I want to say something controversial. That's probably my favorite Angels and Airwaves release, simply because there is no weak link. Like, there's not one part of one song where I'm like, yeah, screw that. Like, I cover to cover, however short, it's just fantastic.
well, on that, I'd say my least favorite release thus far was the Acoustic EP. But
My problem with the Acoustic EP is it didn't set out to accomplish anything creatively except recapture the songs in acoustic. You know, there was no style, voice, and it's like it failed to capture the magic of the actual album, and it didn't blaze its own trail in any sense of the word. It didn't sound new. It didn't stylistically, like, it's just felt like he was jamming on guitar. Like, I mean, heck, I even like There Is or What Went Wrong or Anomaly more. Like the guitars feel so much thicker and fuller and has that emotion.
Exactly.
This
I
is
felt
like dry. It's like a dry sound.
well, I felt like the acoustic EP wasn't acoustic, and I felt like it was overproduced.
It was like, I guess, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I'm thinking of the terminology. Like everything feels so compressed and muted. If that makes, like, even the guitars, nothing has warmth to it, right? And maybe that's what you mean by overproduced. Like it's just,
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and when you go and you listen to it, like next time you play, those 4 tracks, there's so much more to them than the song. I wanted cut and dry, sitting in a bedroom playing the songs with an acoustic guitar.
or like Boxing Day. Like Boxing
Yeah.
Day is like a couple guitars and the electric drums, like,
Yeah.
or the acoustic bass as well.
Exactly. Or even on the trying to remember.
Were we talking about the
His
acoustic
solo.
album? Oh,
No,
the
he did
solo
the solo.
album, yeah.
He had the track about the soldiers coming in, and I can't remember the name of it.
Invisible Parade.
Yes. Like, to me, that was a standout on that release. But
Yeah, I think Tom's solo album is another thing that does not get enough credit. Like he's really, I mean, the releases have been so varied. I think even if he hasn't toured, and to get back to Poet, let me say, like, I think one of the reasons we don't feel as engaged as fans is because it was supposed to coalesce in a interactive experience, and it's just sitting as art, as art on people's computers in ones and zeros. Like it is lacking that human interaction, like the cosplaying and going to an interactive show as like Poet and having all this crazy dream crap all over the place and like lighting the place and giving it that feel. Like that would be amazing. Like I want to go to a concert dressed as Poet with 500 other people dressed as Poet and get really stoned and like watch Tom do crazy visual projection lasers and sing drunk and like, yeah, like holy crap. Like that'd be one of my favorite concert going experiences. It's just like, I mean, Tom quickly just kept going to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. He's kind of like the James Franco of music, and he never stopped to do one thing right. He just kept taking on the next big property. And like, that's why we have Strange Times, Poets, Secret Machines, Cathedrals of Glass, and none of it has actually fully been realized.
Yep. I can get behind that. Did you ever get to see Angels and Airwaves live?
No. Sucks. It sucks, man.
Dude.
I mean, when I became a fan, that's when they stopped touring. Like, I don't know if I scared them away or what the hell happened, but like, I literally, I started watching their live videos as they were doing those 2012 California shows, which was the last time they played in the US. So I was like, oh my gosh, Angels and Airwaves is awesome. I can't wait to see them next year. And then 6 years later, I'm still waiting. But you've seen them, right?
I've seen them, I think, 6 times.
Oh my God, you lucky bastard. All in Florida? Or
Yeah, it was all in Florida. I saw them on Warped Tour. That was actually probably the most unique experience I had watching Angels and Airwaves.
2008?
Yeah. Because when they were playing the Warped Tour set in St. Petersburg, Florida, someone had come on stage and informed Tom DeLonge that Jerry Finn had passed away.
Jesus.
And halfway into his set, he played one more song, then he couldn't keep together, and they ended their set early.
You were there?
Yeah.
That sucks. Not that you were there, but God, that must have been hard to watch.
It was. And for me, live music's all about the experience. And that was an experience that I felt like I got to be part of, in a sense that'll never be replicated again. And I respect him for walking off stage and not forcing himself to go through, because some people say, the show has to go on, or the show must go on.
That's like losing a brother or a father, because they were so close, and he was
Exactly.
Blink wouldn't have been Blink without Jerry Finn, and Tom wouldn't have been Tom, the artist that he is, without Jerry Finn. And you can feel the pain of that loss on Neighborhoods. And I will debate anyone who says that Neighborhoods feels dull or like it doesn't have a purpose. Like there's so much pain and isolation on that record that like I get chills thinking about it. And even in the happy song, there's like Wishing Well, there's such a depth of fear and like loneliness. And like I discovered this album, let's just talk about this was my intro to Blink. Like I knew all the small things growing up, and I discovered Neighborhoods when it came out in 2011. I saw all the advertising material for it, and I thought, okay, like I know Blink 182, you know, na 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 na. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. And like it spoke to me. Like I was going through like borderline clinical depression towards the end of high school, and I was overworked. I was just borderline suicidal at times. Like I don't like saying that out loud, but like it was.
You were a teenager.
Yeah. I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Like I wasn't like in. Yeah, it was something where I felt like I was one step away from snapping. I felt like it just always felt like night. Like I felt like I was always walking down this dark road with no one by my side, like the song says, and Kaleidoscope, and like day and night, no matter what, I was just in this dark place. And like Neighborhoods musically gave me something that validated that like you're not alone in that, and other people feel that, and there was almost a light at the end of tunnel vibe. And it was, you could sit with, you know, you could have a happy song like Ghost on the Dance Floor and still feel pain. And like that's such a powerful thing for me. Like music hadn't done that much up to that point.
Okay.
What were you going to say? Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I totally see that. And I was going to say, what do you think about my favorite track on Neighborhoods, Snake Charmer?
Snake Charmer's amazing. I know I say that so much, but we're talking about Tom. Like, I mean it when I say it. Like, I think we just like the same stuff. Snake Charmer, I love the instrumental intro and outro. Those are like haunting. Like with the drums and the flanger guitar, like that stuff is just masterful. I mean, is that why you like it? Like, what about it resonates with you?
I just love the lyrics. And it's just a fun, upbeat song. And it's the one song on the album that felt like they were having fun, playing around like they used to. And it's, to me, the closest that I think everybody wanted them to be. And then everybody overlooks that song.
Yeah, that's a good point. It feels like something that would be a logical progression from the self-titled, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Bit of Boxcar, bit of Angels, bit of Blink. I would add to that and say there are other tracks that I feel have that magic. I mean, like you have After Midnight and Up All Night and those two, and maybe even if she falls, and you feel that cohesion, even if it's only between like two of the three people. But then like what's interesting is there are songs like Love is Dangerous where there's no synergy, but it's still somehow good. Like it's like the conflict between the different members created that dissonance that the record thrived on for me. Some people thought it felt empty. I felt like it is a depression album. Like that is, if I distill it down to one reflection, it's a depression album. I mean,
it is, because it's you have Hoppus just kind of coming to terms with the evolution of everything with Blink. You have Travis, who literally survived a crash, lost how many friends?
Just like a year, DJM. Not even a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Tom DeLonge, who's not really in that clique anymore and moved on. So he's kind of like the obligatory friend.
Yeah.
And
I know exactly what you're talking about. I have that mental image. I know exactly what you mean. Like,
well, that's the writer in me, I guess.
But yeah, it was, to get back to what you were saying, like, I think Neighborhoods captured that feel and probably what it felt like for Tom to lose Jerry Finn. And like, I know, I mean, they lost everyone. Like Travis lost his friend, the other friend who survived the plane crash, DJ AM, he lost to a drug overdose, and Tom lost Jerry Finn, and Tom had all those crazy health issues, and Travis nearly died. And like, I guess like this ties into our conversation, which in a beautiful way went totally awry. there's a whole gamut of emotions with the music that we've discussed, and even with Poet. Like, I think, like, Poet Anderson, specifically coming back to the film, it gave me a feeling of possibility in the same way that movies like Star Wars or stuff like Stargate or Safety Not Guaranteed give me this feeling of possibility and then of hope. I mean, it felt like it made things fresh again. Like, I always want to be a guy who, when things get bad, I can disappear into like a dream world, or like, I just love the reality of that, or the potential reality, and the fact that lucid dreaming is based in science.
That, and, you know, going back into the short film with Poet, it takes place, all at night, but it's not a dark film. It's very bright and lit up.
That's a good observation, yeah.
And it has, like, this whole, like, dual universe thing going on that's even reminiscent of things like Men in Black.
Certainly.
And it's pure escapism through and through. And I think that ties back into, as an artist, what Tom DeLonge wanted to do. It's about escape. It's about forging your path and having that hero's call. I mean, Poet Anderson is literally someone who becomes a warrior. I mean,
it's kind of like he has a Luke Skywalker arc of sorts, like once he discovers the dream world and his specific place in that dream world. My one complaint about Poet is the fact that the narrative, its strength was its weakness, in the sense that I love the fact that there was an ambiguous, you never really knew when you were in the dream world or when you were in the real world, and I still don't know. I've watched the film like 8 times. I go back, I don't know where in the creator's minds the cuts are. It made it cool. Like, it made it a sensuous experience. Not like, I don't have to process this intellectually. I have to feel it, you know? Like, it is more like surreal and impressionistic, and like that, like I said, there's a duality to it, because it's both the strength and the weakness of the project, of the short film in particular.
Yeah, because it strives, in a sense, to be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but doesn't quite get there.
But that said, dude, we have, like, hopefully a lot coming. Like, at the very least, there's a narrative short film that's been years in development. It was shot years ago, and the scripts are out there that are being shopped around. It's in active development to make a feature, a live action feature, from what we understand. I still think we need a more mainstream animated feature. Like, the short film is an extended teaser and an intro piece, but we could use a feature film where the lines are drawn a bit more finely. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more accessible to the person who doesn't know this is like an impressionistic short film. Like, it needs more of a mainstream screenplay structure, but like, if Tom is able to keep his voice in that story and in those characters, like, an animated film could be fantastic, a feature length.
It very well could be, and it may be better suited in someone else's hands. Like, yeah. I'm hoping it's not going to turn into, I have to be the director on everything that's made. I have to be the person doing the music for everything made. I have to be the co-writer on everything that's made. That could be killer.
Yeah, well, for a short film, that's fine. But like, if you're trying to get it funded on a studio level, or even on like a theatrical level, like you want to distribute it theatrically, and you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million in the production budget, like, I'm sure Tom will do well. But like, the fact of the matter is, like, you wouldn't expect someone who's played guitar for a year to go tour stadiums. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you can't make that huge jump. And so at some point, Tom will need to take these properties and hand it to filmmakers he trusts and say, like, I'm going to be there to creatively keep this project on track and keep the integrity of the story, but like, someone else has to bring it to life.
Right.
So, on that note, who would you have direct a Poet Anderson feature-length film, live action film? Like, imagine something on the scale of Maze Runner, or, I mean, a bit bigger than Maze Runner, like Blade Runner, $100 million range. Like, who would you hire to direct a Poet film?
Well, Wes Ball was definitely a nice choice, but he's only done Maze Runner and a couple of shorts, and his whole slate is stacked. Um, I don't know. It's a good question.
Is it wrong that I want to say J.J. Abrams? Is it wrong? Is it intellectually wrong?
Um, I think everyone's going to complain about all the lens flare that we'd get because that's required.
We got lens flare in the short film. It's built for J.J.
That's really kind of why I'm like, people are going to complain, but it's there.
I kind of put both of us on the spot, didn't I? I can't think. Who else do you have?
Well, the thing is, would it be animated or would it be?
Oh, I meant live action. No,
So it would definitely be live action.
Yeah, sorry.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
For anyone's listening to this at this point, first off, holy shit, you have resilience. And second off, love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Post in the comment section if you can. I feel like the low hanging fruit is so easy to go for, like Spielberg or Del Toro or Nolan, but like I'm trying to think of what the core truth of Poet is and what director has done something like that before.
I've got a name. I'm trying to pull up his name right now because I know who I think would be great. He directed Battle of the Bastards for Game of Thrones, and he brought Altered Carbon.
Altered Carbon is so good. Seriously, if anybody likes Poet, please check out, I mean, the short film or any of it, check out Altered Carbon. It is similar and different at the same time. It is a wonderful, gritty cyberpunk fantasy, I want to say. The imagery of Altered Carbon is exactly what Poet would need. And to that case, this is going to be controversial, but Duncan Jones would be a good choice. I know everyone hated Mute, but he's definitely captured that vibe. And with Source Code or Warcraft, you've seen him tackle a more mainstream story. I think I want someone young. Like, the problem with Spielberg is like, he's Spielberg.
He's in the 70s.
He's Spielberg. No, I mean, he's a master, but his personal experiences are so different than something like Poet would need. Like, you do need a younger director. I mean, even someone like Edgar Wright, who's a bit too quirky for this, but like, if you look at something like Baby Driver, he's still fantastic. Peter Jackson. That's who I would pick for Poet. Peter Jackson. Even though he's older.
Ooh.
That's my pick.
Okay. I can see that. Peter Jackson. Yeah. And his slate's like wide open. He's literally, I don't think, directing anything right now. He's just been producing.
Because Poet is a journey film. Like, if it was told in a feature format, if you converted the book, it is such a classically styled hero's journey on the best canvas possible of the dreamscape. Like, he did that in Lord of the Rings. He told a fantasy story that was centered on arguably one character. But there was an ensemble aspect, but it was never veered too far away from Frodo. And it was just so emotionally satisfying. Like, I'm not even the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, but it was so satisfying. Like, when those movies complete their story and theme and they stick the landing just so goddamn well.
Okay. I think I got another director or directors I could throw in.
Hit me.
Lord and Miller.
That's
seriously though.
No, but I just imagine them getting fired and Ron Howard having to finish Poet Anderson. But yeah, no, I think Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in the Lego Movie is probably what you're using as reference, not the Jump Street movies, because
yes,
like, Jump Street is great and fantastic comedy, but there is something to be said for the Lego Movie and how it manifests the hero's journey and tells a weird story in such a masterful way.
I think that Dreamwalker would need like a touch of lightness. It would need comedy to go with the action.
Sure.
It would need to hit the glorious glamour shots that we say when we're like J.J. Abrams, or the epic scale of Peter Jackson. And I think that Lord and Miller would be capable of doing that based on Lego Movie and even their DNA that is in Solo.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how much is there, but they didn't remake the entire movie.
Who's the guy who... guys, we're going to wrap this up right after this. I promise. I'm pretty sure I'm talking to no one at this point, so it's a little late at night. I'm tired. What is the guy's name who fell in love with Nancy, who's the older brother, and who's kind of a bit gawkish, but has kind of an action style build and very distinct look?
Oh, Charlie Heaton.
As the actor's name, or?
Yeah, his character name was Jonathan Byers.
Yes.
But the actor was
yeah.
Charlie Heaton. Thanks, IMDb.
I mean, if you look at him, like, if you pull him up, like, he has that kind of the hair of Poet. Like, if you dyed his hair black and, like, you know, Poet's not supposed to be this strapping, suave, roguish Han Solo-like character. He's very meek, and he's sleep-deprived, and he's lonely, and he's a teenager, you know, he's experiencing love for the first time, and, like, to that point, Charlie Heaton might be a little too old, but, like, I just want a fresh face. And, like, even the guy who well, thanks again, guys, for listening. Hopefully get to do more of these with you, Andrew. This has been an absolute blast, and I kind of almost forgot we were recording at some point. It was just such a good conversation.
It's definitely fun, and that's probably the best conversation to have because we just kind of roll with the punches, see where it lands, and I think we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, given the time of day right now, I feel like I'm like the radio broadcaster from Sleepless in Seattle, where it's like our voices are getting quieter. You stay safe out there. Have a good night, Seattle. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Be sure to check out some of our other discussions and come back for more. I really do hope to have Andrew back. And anything you want to add? Can we put your social media up here, have people follow you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Andrew_Hogsten. You can also follow my podcast.
Yes.
The Cool Kids Table at CKT_podcast. Or is it at CKT podcast? I forget. I'll have to look it up.
I'll put it in the show notes in the description below. Well, thank you again for joining us, and you stay classy, San Diego.
Thanks for having me, man.